Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may happen to be in SolarWinds. My name is Todd Hoagland, and welcome to the Risk Intelligence webinar, Thinking Like a Cybercriminal. Just a couple of housekeeping things first. If you have any questions during the presentation, you have a little panel in GoToWebinar for questions. Please feel free to go ahead and type those in there, and we will either answer them in the background as we go or probably follow up with you after the session to get you the thorough answer that you need. Also, we are recording today's session, so if you have to jump off, just keep a lookout on our YouTube channel. It will be posted there, and we'll also send you that link in a follow-up email as well. So that's about it from my end. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Rob Douthit, our product manager for the Risk Intelligence product here at SolarWinds MSP. And he's going to tell me that I probably massacred his name again. So sorry about that, Rob.
No, you did great, Todd. Thank you very much. As Todd said, I'm Rob Douthit. I'm product manager with SolarWinds MSP. And we're here to talk about security and cybercrime today. Let's just jump right in. So in our world, as managed service providers and IT professionals, we're faced with the growing threat of cybercrime. This is, not a surprise to anybody. This is in the news every day. It's very important, and it's something we deal with as IT professionals every day. We're expecting the cost of cybercrime to again climb, this time to a high of about $2 trillion by 2019. Every type of organization will face some type of cybercrime. Our health and financial services industries will face much of the focus of this crime. Calculating the average per record cost of a data breach helps us prioritize and understand where we should allocate our time and our effort and resources. The data that we have here for the healthcare organizations having an average per record cost of $380 and financial services at $245 per record. This comes from an IBM Ponemon cost of data breach study that's done every year. It's a global study. It's fascinating research paper that looks at trends across the industries and countries to understand the causes and the impacts of the data breaches. I really encourage you to go out and take a look at that. It's a very interesting paper, and I think very helps us guide our understanding of where data breaches happen and how they happen. So small and medium-sized businesses have traditionally thought that they were not likely targets of cybercrime. As small businesses, we say, well, who would want our data? Who would want to be able, to breach us? But time has proved that they are not immune, and they are in fact easy targets, sometimes easier than the large organizations we deal with that have, dedicated security professionals. Okay. So, what are they after? What are they going after in these businesses? They're going after data. Your data, your customers' data. Data is where it's at. We've traditionally put our emphasis on credit card data as security professionals because that was a kind of an easy win for us. But it's still important. But the credit card industry has really tightened up its controls and is pretty good at protecting its customers from fraud. The inconvenience of a lost or stolen or compromised credit card is typically short-term and minor. But you see here through this data, 49.2% of all identity theft and fraud was looking for government documents and benefits, and they were going after that to try to compromise that and perpetrate fraud based on that data. But the personally identifiable information, the PII, your name, your date of birth, your address, zip code, your social security number for US or in UK, the NHS numbers, it can unlock many lucrative fraud options to criminals. Identity theft is for life. The credit cards, you can shut that down and start it back up, but you can't change your date of birth. You can't change your address or easily, or your social security number. So as soon as that data is out there and freely accessible, it's for life and can cause you problems now and 10 years in the future. So we have to really take a look at that. As IT professionals, we need to help our companies and our clients safely and securely maintain this customer data. It's absolutely crucial. They're looking to us as stewards for their security. If data is the target, we need a security approach that offers the most protection and still allows our businesses to operate efficiently. Right, so we need an approach that really allows us to discover where the data is, protect that data, detect breaches that might occur, understand the impact of that for a compliance type of thing. So, you know, PCI is the credit card industry standard, but there's others. So medical facilities have HIPAA, and you know, very shortly, the EU will have EU GDPR, and these are crucial that we understand the impact and we're able to report it appropriately. And then finally, we want to be able to analyze or to learn to prevent reoccurrence and to really tighten our security up so that we aren't continually at risk. Okay, so besides not collecting sensitive data, you know, a layered security is really the best method we have to protect our customer sensitive data. And locking this data down is not allowing any access is really not an option, right? So we have to create layers of security that will reduce the risk of unauthorized access. This access could be from the outside of the organization or internally through malicious intent or negligence. Right. So what are we going to do? Well, the key is understanding where your sensitive data resides in your business, right? We can do all the protection and everything we're going to do, and we need to make sure that we have these you know, breakpoints, these pieces of software that help protect this data. But not all data is the same, right? Some data is far more sensitive and can create compromises that are bigger and more problematic for our customers. So what do we need to do to really understand where that data is? Well, first thing we need to do is find the devices that are connected to the network. And we can use a discovery tool like SolarWinds Port Scanner, or, you know, open source tools like Nmap, or other industry tools like Network Detective. And we can go ahead and identify all what the network topology looks like, all the routers, printers, the devices that are attached here, and we can understand what's happening there. And once we have that map, then we can start to figure out, you know, and lock it down in terms of, you know, there's a physical security aspect to it, you know, we need to know who has access to that device specifically as a physical way, and what can I do to reduce that overall risk of loss for physical security. So you know, as simple as locking doors and windows and controlling access to servers and things like that is absolutely crucial. You've got to do it. That's a no-brainer. We already do that as a rule. But, you know, there's network perimeter security. We have to have firewalls out there, and they're always the first line of defense from basic attacks, right? So firewalls are important, they're interesting, but we find that you know, intrusion can happen through these firewalls. They're well known, understand, and you've got to test to make sure that the firewalls, the ports are open appropriately. You understand what traffic's coming through there, that type of thing. But you can do other things, you know, so you can segment your network into different trust zones, things like, you know, so you should definitely consider that type of thing. So you know, it's easy to implement a guest network. It's a very simplistic thing that's not bridged to the corporate network. So all your employees' data and all your employees' personal mobile device traffic is segmented away from the corporate data, and you can use VPNs to secure you know, critical business data, that type of thing. So consider that, you know, what the perimeter of your network looks like and how you're going to start to break that down and segment it and protect that area. But one of the biggest areas that we need to focus on is privileged account access. So you as a cybercriminal are interested in breaching a network and a device and some data. Well, you're not going to go for the, you know, the lowest of the privileged accounts. You're going to try to target the admin accounts, right? The people that have the easiest and fastest way to access this sensitive data. You know, these high rights accounts make accessing the sensitive data very easy and even harder to detect, right? So tighten and standardize control over these user credentials. Consider the you know, levels of access for admin users, and does that exec really need and require all access credentials, right? This is our biggest risk right here, and where we find our hackers and cyber criminals are targeting these people, and they do that through lots of different ways, including social engineering and other type activities like that. So in one, there's a couple more things that we need to consider, in terms of operating system security and application security. All the machines have to be actively patched, right? You got to do that, must do it. You should be having an active patch management solution to automate this activity, truly critical. Multi-factor authentication. It's pain. You have to go through one more effort, but multi-factor authentication on critical accounts is just has to be the standard for us. But along with encryption, it's one of the best ways to reduce the risk of a data breach. Use it, especially on email accounts that are used for account recovery, right? Truly critical. So one of my interest areas is data security, right? So let's identify the data in your organization. Let's kind of categorize it. Let's prioritize it in terms of, this is mission critical stuff. This is sensitive to our customers. If this was breached, this is real problematic. And then there's data that isn't necessarily business critical or customer sensitive, and those things we can start to focus our efforts and world around how we prevent the access to the core critical data that we have. So identify that data in your organization. You can use lots of different tools for that. And I'm going to be here advocating for the use of our SolarWinds risk intelligence product. It's a scanning product that we'll discuss in detail here momentarily, but it's a very interesting tool that helps you identify where that data actually sits at rest. You can use other tools, obviously. The Nessus makes a tool, and there's a number of other products out there that will help you do that. I find those are typically a little bit heavier weight and offer a lot more cost than our solution does, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. But of course, with data security, you need to back up your sensitive data and make sure that the restore works and you can get back where you need to be. But overall, is once you identify where your data is, you need to make sure you remediate. Right, you've got to remove that data that's not necessary. Right, this should not be here. This shouldn't have got off of the human resources devices, and it has gone into a manager's or an executive's machine and it's been saved there. They've forgotten about it, but it may have critical data on it. It may have social security numbers, it may have addresses, things like that of your employees or customers, and you need to make sure that you can remove that data that's kind of gotten out of the normal process. Make sure you back it up, and if you can encrypt any of that data, make sure it's password protected, things like that. That is one of the biggest things that you can do to make sure that that data, that Excel spreadsheet, that SQL file, whatever it is not easily opened and reviewed. So encrypt that data, make sure it's password protected if possible. Reduce the permissions, right? So I deal with this every day and see customers, and they say, "Wow, look at that! I had no idea that my company salary data was out on a network server, and it had wide open permissions, so people could go out and take a look at that." And so it's surprising, but there's millions and billions of files out there, and they sort their ways into places that we wouldn't expect. So let's find that data, let's make sure it's appropriate, and let's lock it down or isolate it however the best of our ability. One of the big things that we kind of all scoff at, and I think it's truly important though, is creating an employee awareness training. Right, you don't have to teach them how every phishing or malware or ransomware type of attack occurs. What you need to do is make sure that they're aware that there are these type of activities that are trying to incent them to try to encourage them to give up credentials or give up log into this machine or access this URL, and it could have some really devastating impacts. So let's make sure awareness is the biggest training element. We can train for strong passwords. Right now, passwords is where we're at, and we have to make sure that those passwords are strong. In small, medium-sized business, you're going to find that a lot of these these guys reuse passwords, and so that opens up a lot more potential. So if the one password and account is compromised, they can possibly go to many others. So strong passwords are truly critical. You got to look for unauthorized software on those devices to make sure that there's not anything that's untoward and things you don't want there. We have to look for, in terms of training employees, is make sure that they're aware of how to use web browsing appropriately. And we maybe even have to put in content filtering products, whether that is on a firewall or whether that's endpoint type of security. Through an AV or through content filtering specifically, and those will help protect our customers from going out to malicious sites and unknown malicious sites and getting in trouble there. So, one of the things that is so hard to teach our employees about is social engineering, because it changes so rapidly. But awareness is key. Is that email coming from a known source? Does it look a little bit different? Are there spelling errors? Are there things that will indicate that this may not be what you're expecting from this individual? And so, anytime that they get information about or an email about transfer while doing wire transfers, they need to check and make sure that it's appropriate. And that just goes back to employee awareness training, what we need to do there to make sure that they are at least aware of that they're being targeted. So let's talk a little bit about risk intelligence. So this focuses in on more of discovering where your data assets are and assessing potential liability. And we have a product that helps you identify that. And so what we want to do in risk intelligence is really to expose that critical data and the vulnerabilities on those devices. So you now know what data is there and how vulnerable they are, because you don't have AV on there, you don't have patches up to date for operating systems or applications, and we can help you identify what data is at risk, who has access to that data, and how attackers can gain access to it. And then what we do is we want to make sure you understand, and you can prioritize across all of the devices. You can understand, how much would it cost if this machine was breached, right? And how does that compare with this other machine? And so what we can do is we can start to prioritize again, the highest risk, and trying to mitigate and remediate against that highest risk. And we remediate down to a point where we feel comfortable with it. We have electronic data insurance, or we just are comfortable with this level of potential risk. So one of the things, once we identify and ask these questions and get the answers, is we'll help you communicate, the trending vulnerability over the time. We can have reporting and dashboards that help you identify and understand where that data is. And we do some compliancy reporting. So right now we're focused on PCI, but shortly we'll be moving into the HIPAA world and well as the EU GDPR. We're going to help our customers understand, how their compliance, where their data sits, and how compliant they are in terms of these regulations. So SolarWinds Risk Intelligence looks for unprotected data, we look for excessive access, and we look at the vulnerabilities. And those are the three things we need to understand to make sure we can target the right data. We do it through a couple different scans and types and reports. And so we have a security scan that goes out and it runs on the actual device. So we have an agent that sits on each of the devices, and it does a scan of all data at rest. And in this case, in security scan, it's looking specifically at the operating system, patch levels, as well as 18 different type of applications, the highest and most prone applications that we have on these devices. And what it does a scan of all the devices and it understands exactly what's happening, and then it remediates. So it redacts the data. So it takes these are the sensitive data collections that we have. It redacts that data so we can't really reproduce that, and it sends that up to our cloud service for reporting. So there's always concern, are we able to recreate this type of data? And the answer is absolutely not. We keep it all local on the device. Don't ever remove it in a non-redacted form. So So we have a couple more scans. We do the security and vulnerability. We do a PCI compliance scan. This supports our PCI auditors, so they can go out and ensure that, in fact, that these devices don't contain credit cards in unprotected or unencrypted type of files. And it also checks a number of different scenarios and security aspects on that machine. We have a data breach risk. I'll show you a little bit more about that momentarily, but it goes out and looks for a set of data on each of these devices, and it tries to find that sensitive data on it. It opens every one of the files on the machine that's unprotected, and it gives that report back, and it helps us understand, well, this file specifically has sensitive data in it. We need to make sure that we can remediate properly. Is it necessary to be on this machine? Is it protected properly? Do we have AV on that machine? Do we have other type of security devices that help us reduce the risk there? We have two more scans. One is an inventory scan, so you can go out and find out what the BIOS is and how much hard drive space and a number of different information, piece of information on the device itself. Helps you keep an inventory of all the devices on your network. We have a file finder scan, so a number of our customers use this to try to root out and understand if their employees or the devices they cover are using Tor or other type of applications that are in violation of the company procedures. And so we want to make sure that we're as MSPs and IT pros, we want to make sure that these devices are in compliance, right? We don't want to make sure that they are not doing things that are going to make sure that cause the company liability concerns and a number of other things. So this file finder is another option for us. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration, and I'm going to show you risk intelligence quickly. Okay, so what we have is we have risk intelligence as a standalone product that sits out there, and you log into this service. And I have a demonstration account here that has a very small number of devices on it, but it kind of indicates what we're doing. So you log in, you get a dashboard, and it shows how many scans you've run. You can see that it's I've run 5 scans in June against just 2 devices, right? And so over here we see the risk. And again, what I was talking about earlier is that we have a liability amount. This helps me understand, this machine is $202 US dollars, and that may not be where I need to really spend my time. But there's this one that's over 125,000, and here's one that's 189,000. These are important machines that I need to go understand and start to drill down through and understand what files and how much liability is there. So we can look at another widget that talks a little about devices. We can see all the PII, and we can see about what it is. So on one of the machines, this machine, we have social security numbers, we have a date of birth and credit cards. And so we can find a little bit more information there. So there's the approach we take here is we go in and we say, okay, you're going to need to put the agent on the devices. Oops. Excuse me. Okay, so we're going to go in and our workflow is we're going to put the agent on the devices, and we can do that in a number of different ways. I'm going to say I'm going to do a data breach risk scan, and I can do it through a client command line executable that we download. We can copy it, and we can move this over to a device and install it there. We could also, if we choose to, we can distribute it through some of the remote monitoring and management consoles. We have a cloud service from MSP, SolarWinds MSP, and we also have an on-premise solution as well. So we can do it through those easily, and also through Active Directory. So we can copy it over there, we can push it out with Active Directory, or push it out with these other type of RMM type tools, and we have other abilities to distribute it. We can send it by email, and we get this little thing that we can cut and paste into an email, send it out there. There's a large amount of risk that this may be, if you've trained your employees right, they can come back and say, is this real, or do I need to delete this? And so, but if you do some outside out-of-band communication to say, hey, we're going to be sending you this, it will take you to the link, it will allow you to download it. This is a viable option. So this is all about deploying the agent, right? So once we get the agent deployed, and then we will go, it will run a scan, and we will get a report back, and we can navigate through here, but let me jump right to a report. So we've run a data breach risk scan on this machine. It's an IP, and this is the name of it. And we see that there are a number of different types of data, unprotected data we found. So there's a Visa credit card, there's a, different ACH data, which is financial data, primarily around credit, checking accounts, things like that. And we found that on this machine, we have a potential liability of $21,507. Now, this may be 121 or 1,021,021. And what we need to do is figure out, is this important to go out and understand and remediate? And so this helps us guide us in terms of relative importance in terms of other machines. We have a vulnerability summary here. This tells a little bit about the patching that happens on the operating system, the applications. And we see that, there's some Microsoft vulnerabilities out here, and they're severe. We need to go ahead and remediate. We can take a look at which ones those are specifically. This is not an active patch remediation solution. This just identifies this. Hey, these applications and these operating systems are not patched appropriately. So let's go back to our unprotected data summary. What we have is we found that there's a large amount of potential liability here. We can look down and we can actually see where this data resides. And so we can, these are all just samples and things like that, but we can look into this file. This file has a MD5, SHA-1, and 256 hash. We can search for it if we choose to. We can also look and see what the permissions are. So we see, that the administrators have full rights permissions to it, so everybody can get to it, and it has social security numbers. And here's the social security number. This is that redacted part, so that we can't recreate it in any way. So we redact it on the client, not on in the cloud service. So we can't figure it out. Now this is a map of all your devices out there and where the sensitive data is. So we want to make sure that we remediate this as quickly as possible. So we have social security numbers, driver's license, and Visa credit cards are found in this file. We know we can go to this device, and we can find this file, and we can say, okay, it needs to be either removed because it's not appropriate to be on that machine. It needs to be backed up. It needs to be encrypted. It needs to be, we need to make sure on this device we have antivirus and all these other things to make sure that it's as well protected as possible if this is what we have to be doing. So that is our data breach risk scan. We have, once you run these on a number of different clients, what you'll do is you'll come up with two reports, and I find these valuable for a couple of reasons. First, you look on the left-hand side, you can start to see the host that we've identified and what type of data is on them. This is overall risk, and we can start to understand. So we're going to look on the, we're going to break it here and say, this is our big focus right now. We're going to remediate it in different ways. And we can, this is nice. We can go out there and see what type of data is on it. We can sort and that type of stuff. This is where we're going to focus our time to try to remediate. So over time, as we do this, what we find is you found all this data on their first initial assessment. We remediate like crazy, and all of a sudden, we're down, and everybody's really pleased that our risk is reduced, and we've got this. Well, then time goes on, and we start to see ever creeping situation. So the processes of our environment, the organizations, this data gets pushed back out, right? And so you send, the human resources people send, this is your salary information for these customers. They send an email, and they send it in a file, an Excel spreadsheet, and those are not password protected. And so we see them creep back up, and we say, okay, well, we're back here at a liability amount that we're uncomfortable with. We need to remediate, and we do it again. And so this is an ongoing process, right? So you're not changing the overall process of your organization. What you're focused on is continual monitoring and remediation during that period. And we provide a report here that can help you identify that. Okay. And that's kind of what I want to show with on the risk intelligence piece. As a conclusion, the data is the key. We want you to use a layered security type of approach to protect that data, and we'd like you to go ahead and try risk intelligence out and understand what it can possibly do for you. So I have on the slides we'll push out here very shortly a list of resources that tell you how to access our SolarWinds risk intelligence platform for 14-day free trial, as well as accessing some of the other tools that I talked about from SolarWinds proper. We on the SolarWinds.com website, you can go to products. Underneath there, we have a number of free products. Most of our products are free, and you can test them out and make sure that they meet your needs. There are a number of really good things that you have to do, like the port scanner or the NPM. Those type of things are crucial for larger installations to make sure that they can understand what's happening. And Todd, I wanted to go ahead and wrap it up if I could, please.
Hey, certainly can. Yeah, there were a couple of questions that I threw over at you there. One, do we have a link for that IBM study? Excuse me. I think I've got one. I want to make sure I'm using the same one that you are. If you look at your chat window there too, there's
okay, very good.
There is IBM.com. You see that link that's in your chat window?
Well, I don't see it at the moment, but okay. But if you go out and look for the IBM Ponemon cost of data breach, you just do a search in your favorite search tool. I'm positive it will come up for you. You register with IBM, it downloads immediately, and it's extremely valuable. So I'll push it out. I have it in the resources slide that follows this, but yeah.
Okay, I think we got the one. This is the one. I'm going to send it out to everybody here.
Okay. Okay, and so there was another question about the percentages on the first slide, talking about is it global or just USA, and the statistics I cited were global, and the IBM Ponemon survey is global, and so you can break it down by country. They have a lot of really detailed things about, so if you were in the UK, you want to understand what the cost looks like specifically in your organization for a specific per record data breach. You can do that. You can also look at some of the impacts and the ways that people are getting into creating data breaches per country. So
alrighty, that sounds great. And I got one other for Guy there who asked about getting it. We will send out some emails following up on today's session on all your resources and links to get a trial for risk intelligence, no matter where you are. So
exactly.
Hopefully you can get your feet wet in it that way, right, Rob?
That's it, exactly. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time out to come to this seminar and give risk intelligence a try. Let's find that data. Let's make sure we remediate it and get it under control. But thank you all for your time.
You bet. And any questions that we didn't happen to follow up, it's because we want to give you some more details, and we will follow up with you after the session today. As Rob said, thanks again for coming, and a little bit more time in your day left for you. Okay, take care.